studying and learning to become disciples. But that's really only the blip of our time. And then we have the rest of our lives here on earth to live out. And we're not challenging ourselves to grow and to learn those teachings. So basically, what are we missing out on? What more can we grow in? And then focusing in on the kingdom and living as a part of the kingdom, and then what the kingdom of God will be when it comes here, and it's already here. But it's, those things.
Yeah, cool. Anyone else? Okay, great. So I love this diagram. I will get to that. So I do this every time. So just to kind of summarize, Cameron just mentioned, a lot of us, it's kind of like we have this kind of weird pattern. I'll do it over here because I usually do. We have this weird pattern where you live your life, right? You get to here and you become a Christian, you get baptized. It's a really exciting, powerful moment. But really, this big moment in the grand scheme of life, life to death, it generally, here's death and it's the skull. And you die, okay? Death, we're all going to die at some point. So we have this is called life. You have this whole thing here, and this great moment, let's call it conversion. This great moment of conversion lasts a second, and ultimately, most of us are on campus. Let's say we're born here, and it's great. And you get to a point where, you're a few years old, 20-something years old, maybe this far along in life, I don't know. And you have this moment, this baptism, and you're converted into this great little guy, and it's exciting, and I'm just giving exclamation points, and it's water, and it's conversion. But then the question comes, so you're here, you're like, I'm a disciple, yay, I've been converted. But then the question is, what are you supposed to do with all this time? I mean, what do you do with your life? What do Christians even do? What's the point of discipleship? What's the point of, not just what's the point of being a disciple, but what are we supposed to do after we've been converted? Remember this diagram we talked about? How do you live your life? And I talked about this idea, because obviously we want to get to heaven, and that's all well and good and exciting and important. However, that's one facet of life. Because we've been given, maybe 60, 70, 80 years of life, and there's a lot of space on this. Either way, guys. Either side, we've been given 80 years of life, and the question is, what are we supposed to do with it? What are we actually going to do? Are Christians supposed to live? And I bring this up every single time. That a lot of us have been under the impression, or maybe you've once heard, or whatever, that the idea of a Christian is you live life on the defense, right? And this idea, who can explain this offensive versus defensive Christianity that we kind of have mentioned a few times? Quick blurb. Someone who's been here. Yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
Just not living always on I don't know how to explain the defense, but actually going somewhere with your faith. I guess just actively going somewhere, not just always trying to ward off Satan and trying to just barely make it, but actually doing something with your faith.
Right.
Yeah, just same kind of thing, but instead of well, don't do this, let me avoid these things, and I'm a Christian, so I can't do this, but it's but these are the things that I'm going to go after, these are things that I'm going to pursue, this is the way I'm going to live my life, rather than these are things I'm not going to do, these are things I'm important.
Right. I think you tilt it back a little bit. Yeah. Like that. Yes, that a lot of us, in the Christian world today, a lot of us are under the impression that the goal is you get converted here, and you want to just hold on for your dear life as much as you can. You live your life, you get your job, you have your family, and do everything you can to make it so that in the end you get to go to heaven and you're like, whew, I made it, man. That life was virtually hell anyway. Finally it's over. I hope heaven's awaiting. When Jesus says what? He says that we're to pray that God's will would be done on earth as it is in heaven, that He's come in John chapter 10 to give us life and life to the full. Okay, so the goal is to have life to the full, but there's this weird paradox that says Christianity is enslaving, and that going to church is enslaving, and it's going to take you over your life, it's going to ruin your life, and you're going to be just in chains to the church, when in fact, we know it works the other way, that the world is enslaving. The world has this chain, the world has this tie to our reputation, and tied to finances and relationships, and there's all these things that are temporary, when in fact, the truth of the matter is that's enslaving. And that Jesus comes to free us from that very thing. Paul talks about that. Jesus talks about that. So, living life to the full is what it's all about in the kingdom of God. And the kingdom of God, to summarize, is a place, is a community, an invisible, to a certain extent, community where God's will is done on earth as it is in heaven. We're talking about the Lord's Prayer, right? And we're going to pray in a second because that's just kind of what we do now, which is great. Jesus says, it says, why don't you pray now by memory? Can we do it? Let's say it, and then we can, this is how it usually works. Let's say it together as best we can. and then we'll move forward. Ready? Can we work together? Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Okay. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. And to yours the power and the kingdom and the glory. Okay, yeah. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Some of us think we're in Catholic Mass. What we're going to do is, we don't pray like that. Well, check this out. Repeat after me. We're going to do it one more time, and we're going to explain it. It says, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we have also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Okay, some of us are really weirded out. I mean, it sounds kind of weird. We're all like, but it's interesting. Jesus tells us to pray. He says, Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom, this is the crux of what we do here. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And most of us have, if you're like me, you grew up thinking that meant that we're praying that God's will would be done and that one day we'd be able to go to heaven and be with Him. We're supposed to pray that His kingdom come. What that means is you pray that Jesus is going to come back soon and liberate us from, toast this world, fry this world, and free us. There's elements of truth in that. But what do we see after we examine the bigger picture of the gospel? Jesus is saying, no. We should pray that God's heavenly kingdom can actively come down and can begin to intersect with the kingdoms of this world. And so there's this great marriage that's happening between, we got this heaven and ways of heaven and God and light, and it's coming down, and the goal is ultimately to bring it to earth down here. And that remember we talked about the resurrection and Jesus and all this stuff, through the resurrection and many other things, that God is continuing to bring heavenly ways to earth. And so the role of the kingdom, the role of our body, the role of the kingdom is to bring these things down here. And so that Christians aren't just these flaky, pansy, wishy-washy, no backbone, no conviction tool bags that have nothing going on for them, just get pushed around because there's this Christian little guy. They're not that. They're actually this group of people that are actively combating the kingdoms of this world and are bringing in this heavenly way. What's the phrase you used, JB? I liked it. Against Satan's king, something out of Satan's king.
I wrote it down.
He had this cool definition I liked.
I'll think of it in a second.
Yeah, when you got it, let me know. So it's this, it's like
the host.
Find that piece of paper. So, okay. Well, no, it's specifically this is kind of other definition JB had in like one line that I like. But anyway, it's an active fighting against the kingdoms of this world. That we're literally, it's a forceful advancing. That it's an offensive. It's not this defensive. It's not a defensive Christianity, but it's an offensive Christianity that is, don't worry about it. Forcefully bringing God's will on earth as is in heaven. And that these ways are directly combating against resistance to Satan's rebellion. I like it. That Satan and the kingdoms of this world are leading this world. Right? That Jesus says Satan is the prince of this world. And so the world is actively going this direction, and the kingdom of God is over here and saying, no, this is how it ought to be done. That it's in direct opposition, right? So we've talked about a few different things in this class, I don't know what you want to call it, this group already. We talked about the Beatitudes, and we talked about a whole lot of stuff. At one point we talked about this idea of relationships. And people say, well, if you're upset with your brother or your sister, you have an issue with them, you can hold grudges, you can be bitter, you can be upset, you can be angry with your brother. In fact, it's your right to be angry at your brother. Taking revenge is okay. Taking revenge is part of the deal. It's just what we do. What does Jesus say? He says, if you're even angry with your brother, be careful because you're in danger of the fires of hell. He says, anyone who says to your brother, Rocker, you fool, be on your guard. He says, you've heard it said, and we talk about this paradox that Jesus continues to bring about. He says, you've heard it said, it's not a paradox, not the word I'm looking for. You've heard it said this, fill in the blank, but I tell you,